Hi, my name is Frank Schaeffer. My father was a famous evangelical leader and theologian by the name of Francis Schaeffer. But something that neither my dad nor I could have imagined in the 1970s and 80s when I was his nepotistic sidekick, along with Dr. C. Everett Koop, spearheading the beginning of the so-called evangelical pro-life movement, was that in 2025, what we would see is a merger of left-wing and right-wing anti-Semitism. Yes, it's happened. The 1920s are back. This time it's not Henry Ford, it's not Father Coughlin, it's not those like Lindbergh who were Nazi fans. It's Tucker Carlson. It's the right-wing lying machine saying that somehow Jews are responsible for Jeffrey Epstein's scandal. Jews are responsible for covering this up. Somehow Jews paid Epstein through Mossad, through the Israelis, whatever. And on the left, of course, we know that much of the protest against the abuse of the Palestinians by the Israelis, which is happening, has also taken an anti-Semitic turn. Notwithstanding the fact that a lot of those who are most opposed to what Israel is doing are themselves Palestinians or of Arab descent or Muslims. Let's make no mistake. The Muslim world has been against Israel since 1948. It invaded Israel, it tried to invade Israel, it has been beaten back many times, and that's another debate. But it is so odd to see Tucker Carlson suddenly sounding like the Grand Mufti in the Arab community during the Ottoman Empire. It is so odd to see Tucker Carlson rehashing the lies of anti-Semitism that go back hundreds of years, actually thousands of years, to the time of Rome, when the Romans hated the Jews too, and threw them out of Israel at that time, and they became dispossessed. So let me make something very clear. Whatever your view of the Israeli occupation of the West Bank and how settlers are treating Palestinians, which is horribly, whatever your view of the war with Hamas and how it has devolved into a slaughter of innocent Palestinians, whatever your view of Israel as a nation state, make no mistake, the disgusting history of anti-Semitism in America is real, to the point where, for instance, even after the Holocaust and after all the revelations that were pouring out of Germany at the end of the World War, when Eisenhower went to concentration camps and made people film them so that it could be shown to people, as he said, no one will believe this, they'll be denying this. And indeed, in the State Department, yes, the US State Department, cases against SS officers who had murdered thousands, tens of thousands, millions of Jews were quashed and thrown out, and they were returned to civilian life, having been arrested. Only a very few people were tried at Nuremberg. And one of the reasons for this was that the anti-Semitic community in America ran very deep on the left and the right. The left and the right in their far spheres, their extremes, like Tucker Carlson today, and like a couple of the journalists for the New York Times who in the 1920s and 30s were lying about the Soviet Union and holding it up as a kind of paragon of justice, covering for Stalin and his famine that he caused in Ukraine and other things, even allied with the Communist Party itself that turned against the Jews, persecuted Jews during that whole time. And then on the right, of course, people like Father Coughlin and Lindbergh and the other Nazi sympathizers who tried to keep us out of the war, etc. There's a long history of this. So where are we today? Well, Tucker Carlson has been lying about Jews and has been saying that somehow they are responsible for the Jeffrey Epstein fiasco, that they are the ones who paid him or paid him through Mossad, that he was an intelligence officer, and he was at Turning Point USA, a conservative group of people, many Christians and evangelicals and others who were part of it, making this, and no one protested, no one called him out. And now the lie is spreading. And so what is going on, and I want to be very, very clear, the United States is on the cusp of the left and right once again agreeing, as they did in the 20s and 30s, and at other times in American history, that, quote, the Jews are the problem. And everything will be laid at their door. And this is the resurrection of the old blood libel that goes all the way back into 11th and 12th century Britain, just to take the Anglo-Saxon roots of this after the Norman conquest in 1066, when in one British town, a boy was found murdered in the forest, and the, quote, Jews were blamed, and starting a sequence of events that within a century of that period led to persecution of Jews in the United Kingdom, and eventually their expulsion from the whole country, based on an absolute lie. Some highwaymen and robbers had been murdering and torturing people, and they picked up a young 12-year-old boy, an apprentice, and they murdered him. And then, of course, the Jews were blamed. And a bishop got into the act, and even the king got into the act, who at first took the side of the Jews because they were his friends. But one thing led to another, and of course, in the end, the Jews were exposed to great vilification and then expelled from the United Kingdom. Well, it wasn't the United Kingdom then, but from England. I think it was Norwich, the area of the country. So here we are in a country that has a Christian Zionist group led by people like Reverend Hagee in Texas that talks about Israel being important to the return of Christ. But there's an anti-Semitic line even there, because their view is that when Jesus comes back, he'll slaughter the Jews who have not become Christians and rule the earth. So there's a twist to this, even though they're pro-Israel and lobbied to get the embassy put back from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem with Donald Trump. Their interest being the return of Jesus, not the Jews. They don't care about the Jews. And then you have Donald Trump, who is neither anti-Semitic or pro-Jewish or pro-Israel, much as we might think he was because of the bombing of Iran and their nuclear program, but will go whichever way the wind blows. So if his voters are evangelicals and they're pro-Israel, then of course he's pro-Israel or pro-life. Not that he's pro-life at all. This person accused of rape and the molestation of many women, grabbed them by that blank person, is not pro anything but himself. But as long as the wind was blowing that way, he was sort of pro-Israel. But if the currents change, he will join Tucker Carlson or whomever else is useful to him and suddenly be anti-Jewish, and the Jews will be blamed for whatever it is, as Tucker Carlson did at Turning Point USA, lying about Jeffrey Epstein, saying, we all know, he said, where he got his money from. Really? This is not fact. This is not proved. This is nothing but another stupid, vile conspiracy theory, right up there with conspiracy theories about the falsification of vaccines so that kids are getting measles again. And I had polio when I was 2 because I didn't get vaccinated. There are real consequences to lies and stupidity. And I warn you, I tell you, what is happening now is the far left and the far right will be united. You will see Tucker Carlson will be strangely interested in the words of the Muslim heir apparent to the mayor headship of New York, Mandami, who says that from the sea to whatever it is, the Palestinian cry of occupation is his, and now he's backing out on this because there's a big Jewish population in New York. He's looking at the election when he'll be going up against an independent or other candidates. But how interesting that Tucker Carlson, who is anti-Islamic, or has been in the past, and Donald Trump, who barred Islamic immigration to the United States for a while, that all of a sudden they are parroting, the right wing is parroting the lies that so many Muslims have told about Israel, the lies they have told about Jews, the anti-Semitism that runs through it, and made common cause in the World War II era with Hitler. And after that attacked the new state of Israel persistently. So I'm going to say it again. Whatever your view of the conflict between Palestine, the Palestinians, and the Jews, whatever your conflict ideas are about what's happening to the Palestinians, whatever your ideas are about the place of Israel in the world, whatever your ideas are about Jeffrey Epstein, we know one thing for sure. He was not an agent of Mossad. The Jews in this country are not to be blamed. The Jews in this country have been persecuted before. I'm sitting across from a yacht club that wouldn't let Jews into the yacht club until the 1980s. I'm up the street from Harvard. That would not admit Jews until very recently. Jews have always been kicked around in this country. Henry Ford made common cause with Hitler. We've seen this before. But here's the new wrinkle. The left and the right sort of took turns on their anti-Jewish hysteria. But now, with the left talking about the abuse of the Palestinians on one hand, going full bore into straight out Islamic anti-Semitism that is a thing. And then on the other hand, Tucker Carlson and the right-wing sycophants that follow him, merging in their message of anti-Jewish sentiment, not just anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, which is what's coming. I want to ask everybody who follows me or looks at anything I say and say, are you going to be part of this anti-Semitic rise of terror in America? We already see Jew killing and Jews being shot down, as happened just a little while ago in Washington, D.C., and has happened all through our history. But is this going to move from the fringe to Tucker Carlson's millions of followers? Is this the new thing? Jew killing? Is this what comes next? Because unless you stand up and say that when lies are told, linking, for instance, the state of Israel and American Jews as a group of people to Jeffrey Epstein and what he did, unless you will stand up and denounce the lies and say, look, conspiracy theories are stupid, but this one is evil. These conspiracy theories are evil. Then you will have the responsibility for the terror that is on the way when the Islamic, the left wing, the right wing crazies unite in one thing, even though they all hate each other. And that is their hatred of the Jews. The questions about Israel are a thin excuse for a much deeper hatred. Are you going to be part of this lie, this historic lie that goes back to the Romans, who also lied about the Jews and destroyed the state of Israel? Are you going to be part of the American anti-Semitic rising terror? Because unless you stand against it, you are. My name is Frank Schaefer.